Welcome to the Business of Winning podcast, brought to you by Performance Insights, the leading agency with access to the very best talent in motorsport, providing expert speakers, moderators and hosts from the world of Formula One.
Hello and welcome to the latest edition of the Business of Winning podcast. My name is Marc Gallagher. I'm on my own today because I'm going to be having a chat with a long-standing and very good friend of mine, Toby Moody. He's an extremely well-known broadcaster, of course, presenter and live host. And one of the things we're going to talk about are kind of those insights that we can provide into what's involved in hosting and presenting at a live show. There is a lot more to it than perhaps meets the eye. So hope you enjoy this conversation between myself and Toby. So Toby, great to have you join us on our little podcast talking about the business of Formula One, business of winning, all of that good stuff. At the time of recording, pretty big story this week, which, I think we're still reeling from. It's less than 24 hours since this news broke, but Adrian Newey leaving Red Bull Racing after 19 years. It's a remarkable development, isn't it?
First of all, good to see you.
Thank you.
It's great to see you and great to have your company. Wow. It was you that texted me yesterday. I was driving and you said, about the Adrian Newey news. And of course I stopped and looked and saw it. Didi Matetic, he only left us 18 months ago or so. If you'd told him that Adrian Newey would leave 18 months later, I think he might have jumped out of his poor old deathbed. It's things you just cannot. It's a seismic thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And you and I have just spent a bit of time this morning having breakfast together and chatting about the implications of this. It's the ramifications are really quite profound. So you have the impact on Red Bull Racing. You have the impact on the people who are there, the drivers who are there, Max Verstappen being one. We're only a quarter of the way through the 24 season. And then there's the implications for whichever team Adrian might choose to join. So if he went to Ferrari, for example, he will now be able to join there at the end of March 2025, which gives him a good chance of impacting on the 26 car. It really has far-reaching implications, doesn't it?
I'm a big believer that when you're in a big company or even a small team, it matters little, Mark, doesn't it? That people in that team, they work for somebody. People worked for Michael Schumacher, didn't they? They jumped out of bed in the morning because they knew that Michael would do it. If you were at Williams when Frank was there and Mansell, it was up because they knew that those two people would deliver. And a huge percentage of what is Red Bull Racing at Milton Keynes has gone or will go. There are a lot of very talented people there, but they will feel, who's going to take the tiller now? There will be somebody to replace Adrian, but here and now, there is nobody as good as Adrian. What were those stats you were telling me this morning over the coffee, Mark, of the last time McLaren won a Constructors' Championship, Williams won a Constructors' Championship? They were with Adrian.
Yeah, so I'm going to name drop now. As I mentioned to you, I was talking to Mika Häkkinen yesterday because we were doing a preview to the Miami Grand Prix, and it's extraordinary to think that the last Constructors' Championship for McLaren was won by Mika Häkkinen and David Coulthard, driving the McLaren MP4 13, which Adrian Newey presided over, albeit with a design team including Steve Nichols and Neil Oakley, Henri Durand, but Mika's point, last time McLaren won the Constructors' Championship, 1998. Last time Williams won the Constructors' Championship, previous year, 97, with Jacques Villeneuve and Heinz-Harald Frenz. I think I'm right in saying that. So anyway, the point is that Adrian Newey was the catalyst for success for those teams, an innovator, a designer. So it is an incredible story. Quick final question on this, just for you, on Formula One currently. Max Verstappen is totally dominating Formula One, that Red Bull. It's weird, isn't it, how the big stories in the F1 now are off the track. It's Lewis Hamilton going to Ferrari. It's Adrian Newey quitting Red Bull.
Yes, it is a little bit sad if you're a fan of the sport and you love turning on the television, watching that 4-hour show, the pre-show, the build-up, which is so exciting. It is a bit sad, but I'll just remind you and a lot of people about a guy that I'm sure you've heard of, a guy called Valentino Rossi. He's the most well-known motorcycle racer ever. He rode for Honda in the big class MotoGP for 4 years. The last 2 years of which they changed the regulations, and it was a more modern bike, and it was a bit more leaning towards Formula One technology. That was the start of MotoGP. That was 2002 and 2003. And he said, "But I make the difference to the. I win the races." And Honda said, "No, it's the motorcycle. It is motorcycle. Valentino, it is us." And he said, "Not a problem. If you don't give me the credit, I will leave." Mm-hmm. And he did. Mm-hmm. He went to Yamaha, and everybody laughed and said, "What are you going there? Why are you going to Yamaha?" In the previous season, 03, Yamaha had only had, off the top of my head, Mark, I think 1 podium, if any at all. He went to Yamaha, he won the first race. Yeah. Straight out like that. Yeah. Grown men cried.
Yeah.
So it's sometimes you can paint yourself into a corner of, it's the motorcycle or it's something or so. Actually, it might be something else.
And this is actually what I love about the pinnacle of motorsport. We talk a lot about the technology, but it doesn't add up to a whole lot if you don't have the people and you don't have the talent and you don't have the creativity of the rider in the case of motorcycle racing or the driver in case of four-wheeled motor racing. Let's talk about a big event you've got coming up. Just in a few weeks' time, you're heading to the Le Mans 24 Hours. It's a race that I love. My former team competed in it on 4 occasions. But you're at Le Mans working with one of the legendary brands, hosting, moderating. Tell us all about that. What's coming up?
Yes, I love Le Mans like you do. I love Le Mans like many people. It is modernism. It is history. It is passion all rolled into one. It is a 2-week event, really, culminating in the 24 hours in the middle of June. I'm working for Porsche Motorsport. They've hired me to host their press conference, which is the day before the event on the Friday. They've hired a theatre downtown. On stage, we've got the big bosses from Porsche Motorsport, led by Thomas Loudenbach, Roger Penske, an international corporate name, never mind just a motorsport legend. They're on stage. All of the drivers, a car, and you're being me. I'm stood on stage and presenting this, and it's a fantastic thing to do for a press conference. During the race itself, every 2 hours, I host a race update of what's happened to the corporate guests of Porsche. In the paddock, in the hospitality of what's gone on. We'll get a guest come and join me, whether or not it's somebody straight out of the car.
So you get a driver in the middle of the...
Still with their overalls on, Mark.
That's amazing.
And that's real passion, because you can see them talking to you, but actually their eyes are flitting across the screen to see how their car is doing. Yeah. Or I may be talking to Mark Webber, who's driven at Le Mans, been on the podium there.
Porsche ambassador, of course.
Porsche ambassador, well-known name. Or Timo Bernhard, who is a Porsche ambassador and has won Le Mans and all the great races. So it's a huge pressure event for everybody.
You'd have to say it is the premier Porsche motorsport event of the year.
Totally.
Le Mans 24 Hours. I mean, I mentioned intentionally the fact you're working for a very well-known brand. There are none larger than Porsche when it comes to the Le Mans 24 Hours. That gives you quite a lot of pressure, because you have to prepare for press conferences, corporate events, all under very tight deadlines. How do you prepare for such a significant corporate event as this one?
People might think I'm over-exaggerating, but you have to absorb yourself in it. You have to absolutely live, eat, sleep, breathe it in the run-up. I've got quite a brain that I can just lock some stuff off, and you just focus on one thing. Do all my homework. You've got to have it in the forefront of your mind, not on an iPad that you're reading in front of 600 people in a theatre. You have to know it, eat, sleep, breathe it. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, but it's not simple, because you and I know.
Well, it's not simple, no.
You and I know what happens when you see someone try to do it who thinks it's easy, but people like you make it look easy because of the preparation. I mean, for example, Porsche must give you a briefing, in terms of brand guidelines, values, things that are important to them. What's the key message, that you're trying to get, all that kind of information. You've got to absorb that and then keep it in the forefront of your mind while you're presenting.
Totally. And, we do rehearsals the day before. Toby, is it okay if you get there at 10 o'clock? I said, I'll be there at 9.
Yeah.
You have to rehearse and get it right because you've only got one shot. You've absolutely only got one shot to get it right. And when there are members of the Porsche AG board there,
yeah,
it puts a little bit of extra pressure on, which actually I quite like.
Well, I was going to say, you've worked with Porsche before, haven't you?
Yes.
So it's a good sign when people invite you back.
It's a very nice phone call to have, Mark. Yes.
Yeah. Porsche is not the only large program that you've worked on. Obviously, other OEM brands that you've done really significant events with.
Totally. If I can stay with Le Mans, I did a lot of work for Audi during the heights of their Le Mans success. They had a €3 million corporate hospitality area just before the final corner at the racetrack. And I was again on stage every 2 hours, talking to this massive audience with a stage with TV cameras. The TV cameras were purveying the show that we made every 2 hours, not only to the other 7 hospitalities around the racetrack, but Audi centers around the world, in Germany, in Beijing, in California, that could be experiencing exactly what was going on at the racetrack during the weekend.
Now, I'm going to segue off into a question that we didn't discuss while we were sort of getting ready for this podcast. You've just mentioned a really important point, which is speaking at corporate events, which are being streamed and broadcast around the world to different audiences, many of whom will have English not just as their second language, but maybe their third language. And it's a comment that I often hear from audiences that I work with. It's about the pace of your delivery.
Correct.
We're both native English speakers, but when you're speaking and presenting in front of a global audience for a corporate client, you have to be conscious of the words that you use, the phrases you use, and the speed of delivery.
Totally. You've actually just transported me back to some of the events that I've done in Germany and in Italy. I'm not fluent in any other language except English, but I love language. I learned from somebody 30 years ago, if you can just learn some words in a language, Iksi, kaksi, kolme, neljä, viisi, kuusi. Ask Mika what that means. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in Finnish. Why would I ever need that? But you're laughing, and it disarms people, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Servus, habedieri, all the German relaxed comments just disarms people. And that's not a salesman trick, Mark. I'm not trying to be greasy or slimy. I just want to be part of everybody all together when you're on stage. This particular show that you've brought back to me, it is truly international, that I've done on behalf of KTM, the largest motorcycle manufacturer in Europe. Multi-billion euro turnover. And I'm front of house for them. And there's probably 20 different languages all stood in front of me. Now, I don't know 20 different languages of hello or how are you, but at least I can rattle through 5 or 6.
Yeah.
And then the show's going rather than being stiff. And I hate that introduction of being too stiff. But the speed and pace that you do without missing out words is vital.
Sort of what I call international English, which is so important for corporate events. This kind of leads us into a topic which is close to my heart, because I've been a professional public speaker for 25 years now. And one of the things that I've become really conscious of is who I'm working with on stage. And there's this whole topic around why should a conference have a professional host or moderator. It's important to me because I've had great experiences and I've had some pretty dreadful experiences, because the host and the host / moderator actually becomes the glue that holds a whole event together. Just give us your thoughts on the benefits. And I know you're preaching to me, and I'm already the converted. Just talk to me about the benefits of having a professional host or moderator at an event.
Before I even picked up a microphone, I heard from somebody, it doesn't matter how good your words are, if they can't hear you, what's the point?
Yeah.
How many times have you and I been on stage watching somebody talk with a microphone and they hold it like an ice cream?
Yeah, sure.
You know exactly what I mean already, don't you? And they're holding it, and you're there, and you're trying to telepathically speak to them, going, put it closer.
Yeah.
And sometimes you can't do it any longer, and you have to reach out and put it closer. People get so shy. People walk out on stage who are not used to it, and they are stage fright.
Yeah.
It hits them like a bus. And I have the expression, you walk out on stage, and all you're looking at are owls. Yeah. All these wide eyes, and nobody blinks.
Yeah.
And people get frightened by that. They may have done a €6 billion deal the day before in the boardroom, but this is something completely different, because I didn't do a €6 billion deal the day before. With people like yourself are doing these corporate events. So other big boss I worked with for some years, I'd say, you've got to stand at the front of the stage. And then as he was talking, he didn't know he was doing it. He was stepping backwards.
Yeah.
And he's getting further and further away. And I can remember it now, Mark, and putting my hand behind his back, just gently giving him a nudge. You've got to be front of stage.
It's funny how all of these things become automatic over time. Literally agreeing with the audiovisual team. Where is the optimal lighting? Where do you want me to stand? How far can I walk around the stage? People like walking around the stage. I like walking around the stage, but I usually agree, well, don't usually, always agree, how far can I walk? Is it 1 or 2 meters to the left or right? And how, all of that kind of thing. But the point that you just mentioned, it's so topical for me. So a couple of weeks ago, I spoke at a corporate event, and before I came on stage, there was a senior executive, and she didn't realize how directional the microphone was, and she wasn't holding it up to her mouth properly.
Ice cream trick.
Yeah, and she was the chief executive and was giving a really important address, and that was the first problem, was that the microphone was in the wrong location. And because she was the chief executive, none of her staff seemed to have the wherewithal to just tell her, you're holding the microphone incorrectly. Second thing was the microphone had a fault, which meant that every third or fourth word was cutting out. And it was either to do with the equipment, the signal, or there was a battery issue, whatever. What that meant was that her keynote address that started the whole conference was frankly inaudible to most of the delegates in the room, and everyone was too polite to say anything. Now, you and I know that if we're involved in an event and we see a technical problem, we just will front up. I would walk up to you and say, Toby, your microphone isn't working. Here's a replacement. You would do the same for me. This is a difference, I think, when you work with professionals. And so that's why the job that you do, and you've said, you do a huge amount of preparation. That preparation makes it look easy, but it's not.
One of the things I like to do is a 5-minute warning. Yeah, but we didn't script for a 5-minute warning. It's fine. Everybody's in the room and it's all okay. No. I like to know that the microphone is working. Yeah, but it worked in the rehearsal an hour ago and it worked yesterday. Yes. I know that, but now everybody's in the room and there's 1,000 people in the room with their mobile phones that are still on. Are 1,000 signals emanating from their mobile phones going to clash with the radio signal that goes from my microphone to your base? Because we couldn't test that until now.
Yeah.
Can we just do that? And once it didn't work, so we used the backup mic, which was already on stage, which was hardwired.
Now, I honestly can tell you, I could do the rest of this podcast on the topic of technical screw-ups that I've seen at conferences. Famous last words, the ones that I really dislike hearing, is when I turn up at an event and someone says, it's okay, we don't need to do a technical check. We checked it all yesterday. Yesterday's yesterday, today's today. Things change overnight. Batteries go flat. Someone pulls out a cable. the PowerPoint presentation has been edited overnight, doesn't work the same way the next day. I mean, it's incredible, the stuff that goes on. Let's come back to you. You are known to motorsport fans as a broadcaster, but you've segued from broadcasting, or you've combined broadcasting with becoming a corporate host and moderator.
Mm-hmm.
How on earth did you end up in this field?
When you are the voice of MotoGP, which I was for nearly a couple of decades during a golden era, and the advancement of cable satellite television all over the world, people want a part of you because they sit and watch you on a Saturday afternoon as the race is going on. The first corporate event that I did was on behalf of Honda. They had launched a special limited edition motorcycle in Valentino Rossi colours, who was at the time working for Honda. We did it in a nightclub in Milan. It was all a bit dark, and it was at sort of 5 o'clock in the afternoon. It wasn't at 11 o'clock at night when the music was going, but it was a buzz in another way, and I've loved doing that. And it's sprung on from there, really. It's sprung on all over the world that I've done them. I've been asked to go to America and host national corporate events in America. Somebody's talking to me at the moment about even going to Australia to do something.
Yeah.
And I've said, yeah, let's do it. Because the guy who is in charge of the oceanic region has faith in me. And that's great to hear.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, people need to have trust in the people that they're working with. And I think this is why I go back to the point about Porsche asking you to come back and do Le Mans. They know that you're a safe pair of hands for that. Let's keep on this theme of how you get started and talk about some of the more complex events that you have been engaged in, and the split-second timing required sometimes to get it all very right.
There's a couple, actually. They're both funny. I'll do one. There was a bike launch, and Valentino was there. And it's rare to get a mega superstar like Valentino Rossi, the king of motorcycle racing at the time, to be there. And the bike came on stage, and there was somebody inside these leathers. And the clever people in the crowd went, "Yeah, but you can't buy those leathers. They're the special leathers that the riders have." And they were laughing and they were grinning. And then he took his helmet off. It was like Michael Schumacher on Top Gear as the Stig. Do you remember?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
The roof came off this place. He was current. He was winning literally 2 days earlier, the previous Grand Prix. It was fantastic. There was another event which was in Spain. It was on a private airfield just outside of Madrid, very rural. It was the middle of June. The flowers were out. The sky was blue. And it was to do with a motorcycle launch, and it was a massive, big launch. There was a lot of money riding on this motorcycle on behalf of the manufacturer. But the pinnacle of the launch was the Spanish Air Force flying over in formation.
Okay.
I had an earpiece linked to one of the Spanish Air Force guys who was in the grandstand overlooking where we were on this runway. And he was going to give me a countdown as to precisely the time that the Air Force would fly over, as you see on the Formula One grid,
yeah,
with the smoke coming out of the back. The earpiece failed.
Oh, you had no radio comms.
I had no radio comms, and you can pad for a while, but I did have a line that I had to get out just before they appeared visually, and and you could hear them. But there was a marquee in the way, and I couldn't see from where they were approaching. But it was a bit of a windy day, and the wind was blowing the marquee apart just a little bit, and I could see the twinkle of the nose light of these Alpha Jets that were approaching. And I thought, right, I'm safe now because I can do a countdown. And I got it absolutely spot on. I've got a photograph at home on the wall in the office, and I can hear my words. You want power? Look at this. And the Spanish Air Force is coming over. I'm stretched out, pointing to the sky, and half the people in the grandstand are looking, going, "What?" And half the people at the grandstand are looking at me, and they still hadn't realised that the jets were coming over. There was absolutely one chance.
I love the fact that you're on stage presenting, and at the same time you're looking through the flapping door of a tent at the Spanish Air Force on the flight line as they come towards you. I mean, actually, this shows the complexity of the kind of events that we get involved in motorsport, because we love executing complicated things, and it doesn't matter if it's a pit stop, and it doesn't matter if it's timing your presentation with the Spanish Air Force about to come over. We love that kind of a challenge, because when you get it right, it's hugely impressive. So the fact is that, Toby, you know, for listeners of the podcast, our company, Performance Insights, specializes in bringing talent into events which are themed around generally high performance, and there's usually a Formula One thread running through it. So we very often have team principals, Formula One drivers, senior engineers, mechanics, people who've worked in senior leadership roles. You know Formula One, but I know you have a much broader motorsport story to share. So just if you can sum up sort of in a minute or two, the Toby Moody motorsport story. How did you get into it? And you mentioned the MotoGP. You know, you are very much associated with two-wheeled motorsport, but you've actually worked with some really major projects and still do on four wheels.
I'm a car guy. I was brought up around cars. My father was a commentator, and I then had a go at commentating, and somebody tapped me on the shoulder who was a university lecturer, and he said, oh, you need to push this. You need to do it. And I went, okay, I'll do it. And I went to Goodwood, and they hired me for the Goodwood Festival of Speed. I was 22. And I thought, right, don't mess this up. And I learned very early on, do your homework. I didn't know half of the cars that were on the entry list. I sat in a library and I did my homework. I then had this opportunity to go and do this motorcycle thing. And I remember saying on the phone to the guy, he said, oh, we want you to do this. And I went, yeah, I'll be the guy in the pit lane, or the second commentator. No, you're the lead. Oh, right. He said,
what was that for? Was that a national championship?
No, that was for MotoGP.
That was for MotoGP.
For Bearne, who own the MotoGP World Championship. He said, right, come to Spain in next week. And I went, okay. I went out. I bought myself a load of books and videos and DVDs and magazines. And I went, do your best you can.
You do realise we have to tell some of the audience what a DVD is. Never mind a video. I mean,
a video,
A video, yeah.
But I gave it my best shot, and I was 23, and I was live on air outside of Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia. And when we were in Indonesia the next week, 2 weeks later, we were in Japan, we were in Jerez. It was this amazing thing.
Where did you race in Indonesia?
We raced at a circuit called Sentul, which was just outside Jakarta. It was used for a couple of years, and then we didn't go back.
We raced there in A1GP. It was a very memorable experience going to there. But that's one of the great things, isn't it? Again, coming back to the point about talking to international audiences, you're well traveled as a result of this motorsport.
I love travel. I love the internationalism of, well, full stop. I just love internationalism. That's why I like to learn these little phrases in different languages. And I love traveling, to not just to sit on a beach and watch, but just to go and experience it. And then you can, they do that there. Why don't I bring us some of that over here? And that's what experience is all about, isn't it?
So you got into the motorcycle racing. As you say, you became very much associated with MotoGP. But then, more recently, you've worked in motorsport with companies like ProDrive, one of the legendary names.
Yes. One of the other commentary jobs that I had was working on the Paris-Dakar Rally in Africa. I did many of them. Huge high-pressure voiceover situations where you have to voice a highlight package in one go. Now, many of us can talk for maybe 6 hours on a live race or a live qualifying session, Mark. You've done it. I've done it. Many people listening have heard it. But to voice a very tight edited program is a completely different kettle of fish. But I had to voice it all in one go when it was being transferred from the middle of the Mauritanian desert in a 49-degree heat in Africa on the satellite to 184 separate television companies.
So did you do the Paris-Dakar when it went from Paris to Dakar?
Correct.
Of course, for listeners, some of the listeners will not realise that the Dakar rally today doesn't go anywhere near Dakar. It's in Saudi Arabia. So you did the Paris-Dakar, and now last 3 years, I think you've been with the ProDrive.
With ProDrive, yes. David Richards tapped me on the shoulder one of the rallies, and he said, "Oh, we need you in this team. With your experience of the rally." I was the media manager then over the last couple of years, working with ProDrive and Mumtalakat, part of the sovereign fund of Bahrain. We had Bahrain Red Extreme. We had 9-time world rally champion Sebastian Lowe, and we finished on the podium 3 times out of the 4 times that the team did the rally. Hugely educative experience. Great to work in a team full of passion, of drive, of never give up, and that drive to win. And you learn so much, as you know, when you're part of a team, that there's no I in team. Yeah. Team is actually together, everybody achieves more, and that is the truth.
And how did you find the experience of working in Saudi Arabia? Because this is a nation that has suddenly kind of come from nowhere into motorsport. We now have Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. We have the Dakar event. How was that experience working in Saudi Arabia?
I loved every single minute of it. And that's not just saying it because I've been there and such like. We had some days on one of the rally during the fallout of COVID where we were stuck in our hotel for a quarantine. And then I could go out for a walk. I love walking around new cities. And instead of going to the McDonald's or the Starbucks, I went to the little cafe on the corner that was run by 3 guys, all under the age of probably 25 years old. You walk in, "Can I have a coffee?" "Oh, are you American?" No, I'm English." "Oh, what football team do you support?" "Oh, well, actually, I'm not into football, but I do." "Oh, you're with the rally. That's great. Do you know Yazid Al-Haraji, who's the Saudi famous driver?" Yeah. And all they were trying to do is start a little business and get going and work it. There's a huge number of the population in Saudi Arabia that's under the age of 30 or 35. Forgive me, it's left me. It's a massively young population for a huge country. I love the scenery. It's from another world.
I mean, the photographs and the videos you have shared on WhatsApp are just insane. I mean, as you say, it looks like another planet. Talking about new territories, let's talk about a new territory for MotoGP. So Liberty Media took over Formula One at the end of 2016. They effectively got into the hot seat at the beginning of 2017. And Liberty Media have transformed Formula One. It's recently been announced that Liberty Media have now acquired MotoGP from Bearne. They've actually bought a majority stake. I think Bearne's shareholders continue to hold 14% of it. So I think 86% now belongs to Liberty Media. How do you think that's going to go? It's really, I mean, you're probably better placed than most to say where is the low-hanging fruit for Liberty Media with MotoGP? What could MotoGP do a lot better, given your knowledge of it, and also given your knowledge of what Liberty have done in Formula One?
Bearne, like Bernie Ecclestone, have done a fantastic job with what they've had. Bearne have run MotoGP since 1992 under the same big boss, the managing director, the CEO being Carmelo Espeleta. He's done fantastically. I will defend their TV coverage. I will walk over broken glass for them. They never miss anything. They are exceptional entertainers through our television screens. Some of the traditions and we have to do this, they don't want to move. They don't want to move. And it will take, you don't have to completely throw the baby out with the bathwater, but it will take a little bit of disruption to make it, this works. I stood on the top of the highest grandstand in the centre of Silverstone Formula One circuit last year with Jake Humphrey. We were ironically hosting an event together. Yeah. I looked around and literally, as far as the eye could see, there was stalls, people, tents, flags. There was even a circus and a big top in the distance. And I just said to Jake, I said, this is like the Glastonbury of motorsports. Yeah. This is huge. It's sold out for 4 days now. And that's where I can see MotoGP going. There needs to be more manufacturer interaction on the racetrack. The history of motorcycle racing is similar to Formula One. Of course, it's there. We need to get Valentino on his Repsol Honda that he rode 20 years ago, on his Gauloise Yam, and ride round Mugello. Grown men will cry to see him at their favourite racetrack. There's all sorts of other things I've got some ideas about, and they're really not very difficult to do.
So I'm not a motorcycle racing person. I don't know why that's the case, because I love motorbikes and I've had some fantastic experiences on motorcycles. But when I, as an observer from a distance, motorcycle racing has always looked to me like very much a Southern European sport, big in Spain, big in Italy. Why is that? And what do you think MotoGP can do under Liberty to grow the audience in the way that they've grown the audience in Formula One? Formula One has finally cracked the American market, which it's struggled with. Where do you think the room for growth in the audience is?
A lot of the bosses in Spain might walk out of their offices and see the billboards on the side of the motorway advertising a sponsor, a Repsol, a sponsor associated with MotoGP. Oh, well, we've made it. Yeah, but you haven't made it in England.
Yeah.
There's not enough people going to the British Grand Prix. There's not enough people post Valentino Rossi going to the Italian Grand Prix, which is the mecca.
I mean, what about the biggest market in Europe, Germany? Is motorcycle racing big in Germany? Is that a market for it?
It's a sellout crowd, but ultimately that's not where the money is coming in from for the promoter of the sport globally.
Right.
The money, as you know, Mark, comes from the television and such like. Pay TV, free-to-air TV, that's another discussion that I'm sure you've had for not even hours, but days. Yeah. They do need to let it go a little bit more to free-to-air on a balance. People still have a block of paying extra to watch TV. But then again, I can defend pay TV and go, well, you can go and have a coffee down the road. They don't give it away. You can go and have a meal at the restaurant. They don't give it away. You've got to pay for something. But I'm happy to pay for the coverage that I get because it is very good, but I don't pay for some other sports. And yes, I wish I did because the money might run away. So it will never get as big as Formula One in America. Not everybody drives a car. The reason it's big in the Mediterranean countries, two-wheeled sport, a lot of people are riding mopeds, scooters. The weather's good. Not too many mopeds sold in Finland.
No, sure.
Ask Mika. So there is the cultural background, but there's a little bit of infighting between some championships and whatever, but there needs to be a consolidation of less money available for the bigger show.
Now, one of the comments I would make about the growth of Formula One is that we have seen an influx of content creators online, young women and men producing amazing content across all the social media platforms, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. We have a lot of influencers coming in, again, young people who are, got so much passion and enthusiasm for the sport. However, it also sometimes makes me reflect on the fact that there is still an important room for expertise and experience, people who've, and this is not to be a gatekeeper, actually quite the opposite. I'm a huge supporter of young talent. But when Liberty are looking to grow MotoGP, the opportunity to tap into expertise and experience is an important one, isn't it?
Oh, totally. It's the old story. You can't see where you're going wrong when you were 23 on air like I was. Yeah. I look back and I cringe and I think, I wish I'd done that differently. And all of us, the world over, I wish I knew then what I know now. The experience that you get over many years doing your job can be passed on. And I love passing it on. And I rang somebody. This is no BS. I rang somebody on Monday and I said, I've listened to what you do. You're really good. And he was wow.
It's funny,
Wow. And he was almost speechless. And I said, no. I'm tired of people criticizing but it takes the same effort to ring somebody up or write them a note and say, that's really good. I know what it's like when people say, that's really good, and it makes you feel good. And then you get why don't you try this? Why don't you try that? There's so many commentators, presenters, there's no direction. There's a direction of, right, camera off, advert coming in 20 seconds, 10, 5, 4, 3, 2. That's a direction of the program.
Yeah.
But to actually have a guiding hand on someone's shoulder of, watch this back. My first boss, he sat me down. He said, bring in your worst race. And I brought in my worst race. I said, but this is the good bit. And he just fast forwarded it. He says, I don't want to listen to the good bit. I want to listen to the bad bit. I've never forgotten that.
Yeah.
I want to listen to the bad bit. And I learned a lot from him as a youngster. Yeah. And now I'm his age. I want to pass that on.
So this is, again, something that David Coulthard, who we do a lot of work with, talks about when he moved from being a Formula One driver into being a broadcaster. He couldn't understand why the production team didn't have a debrief to go through all the mistakes.
Correct.
To say, how can we improve? Because he said, we do that in Formula One. Why wouldn't you do it in broadcasting? And the answer he was given was, we don't want to upset people, by telling them they made mistakes. So really interesting point. Let's just finish on something of it's fun and a personal passion. And I want you to explain to listeners, Shelsley Walsh. What is it? Where is it? Why are you involved? Why should we care about Shelsley Walsh?
It's a bit of a different one after what we've been speaking about with Porsche and Audi and international launches with the Spanish Air Force. Shelsley Walsh Hill Climb is the oldest motorsport event in the world. On August the 12th, 1905, a 1,000-yard strip of road was used by the automotive manufacturers in the UK to prove that their cars could even climb a hill, let alone do it against the clock. It's very steep.
Yeah.
Hill climbing. It is the earliest form of motorsport. I went there with my folks. My folks had raced. My father commentated. I used to sit in the commentary box. And of course, my mother said only a couple of years ago, it went in from your father into your head, but nobody realized at the time when I was 8, 9 years old or whatever it was. And I learned to commentate there. And Shelsley is the Lord's Cricket Ground. It is the Wimbledon tennis court. It is the Boston Red Sox baseball stadium of hill climbing the world over. If you want to win a hill climb, you got to win at Shelsley. I never thought I would be able to even get in a racing car and just have a go on an airfield on a Wednesday.
Yeah.
But I managed to get into a racing car. I worked hard. I got some money. And, okay, I'm not so bad. And I held a class record at Shelsley. Saw the time when I got to the top of the hill, burst into tears.
Amazing.
Because it's pride. It's pride.
Now, can we just explain to listeners, are we talking about a concrete, jungle of the kind that we see at modern racetracks? Or is it somewhat different from that? Where is it and what's it look like?
It is in a very quiet, leafy valley in the middle of Worcestershire. I don't know, it's 20 miles away from the Welsh borders or so. It is as green as you can see. It is a single track tarmac road. It's not curly, twisty like a Monaco. It's much more of a Monza, if I could call it that. It's quick. You need to be brave to drive your car, whether it's a road car or a single seater. There's a lot of Formula One technology involved at the moment. The cars, they're 410 kilos and they've got 750 horsepower. What does a modern Formula One car weigh, Mark?
3/4 of a ton.
And more.
And more.
I think it's 890 or something or other with a little bit more power. They do 0 to 60 miles an hour in 1.9 seconds. They do 165 miles an hour up a single lane tarmac road over the finish line. It is Formula One up a country lane. You have never seen motorsport like this so close up in such a traditional old country environment with such modern technology.
Well, you very kindly invited me a couple of years ago and I went up and I was absolutely astonished with what I was seeing. It's, if I may say, it's very slightly eccentric and brilliant for it. You've effectively become a commentator off the back of Shelsley Walsh. You're not the only commentator to have come out of there.
No, it was a lot before our time, but Murray Walker started there in 1948, and the year after he was at the very first World Championship Grand Prix Formula One race at Silverstone. I got to know Murray. People got to get him to return to Shelsley and go into the same commentary box that he did. But a target for me was, when I was growing up, I saw a former world rally champion called Hannu Mikkola come to Shelsley in then the car, the Audi Quattro of car of its day. Yeah. And I was mesmerised. And that was in celebration of Hans Stuck going to Shelsley in June 1936. Part of the Auto Unions versus the Silver Hours, the Mercedes-Benz before the war. And I always thought, wouldn't it be great to get one of those Auto Unions to come back? It took me 7 years, but I got Auto Union to come back with the car that Hans Stuck drove 80 years earlier with Hans Joachim Stuck, the son of Hans Stuck. And the sun shone, the sky was blue, the exhausts were noisy, and
sounds like a perfect English.
It was a perfect English day, but it was two reasons I was proud, Mark. One, emotionally, because it was a great thing to see, and one, because commercially and from a corporate point of view, Audi Germany were involved, Audi UK were involved. They sent me emails saying that's the best day of motorsport we've ever had. Stuckey came down the hill the first time. He said, a person to tears.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe what I was doing. I was reliving history. And I just we must not forget history. I don't want to be, in the old days it was better, because it's not. Because tomorrow is a better day. Tomorrow has got the fastest car, the best performance, the best show. Is always tomorrow. And
it's a great piece of heritage and history all the same, and one that you're very proud of and closely involved in. Toby, it's been great to have this conversation with you. I've covered quite a lot of ground, and please come back and have a further chat with us in the future. Anytime.
Good to see you.
Thank you. Well, I really enjoyed that conversation with Toby Moody. We very seldom get a chance to sit down and have a broad sweep, not just through motorsport, but the ins and outs of live presenting and moderating and hosting. I eat, live and breathe this topic pretty well every day of the week because of the work that we do at Performance Insights with corporate clients. And I can't emphasize enough just what a difference it makes to have a professional host or moderator provide the glue that holds your whole event together. Great fun indeed, and super to have Toby join us. Once again, this podcast is brought to you by Performance Insights, experts in putting together the talent necessary to bring high performance to your event, with talent from the world of Formula One and broader motorsport. And if you want to know more about the talent that we work with, please visit our website at www.performanceinsights.co.uk.